let's look at finding the area of circles. Yet again, we're going to need our value of pi, which is 3.14. And as we know, pi is a ratio between the diameter of the circle and the circumference of a circle. A lot of people know that the formula for the area of a circle is pi r squared, or pi times the radius times by the radius again. But a lot of people don't actually know why, so let's try and explain or have a look at exactly why that's the case. You can see that we've got this circle over here, and you can see that it's been cut up into 16 pieces. If we're trying to do this example, we'd love to cut it up into even smaller pieces to make this more accurate, but it'll help you to get a visual anyway. You can see that we can find the radius there, so the distance from the center of the circle to the outside of the circle. And you can see that we could also find the circumference. You can see the circumference around the outside. What you would then do is you would cut out all these little pizza slices, or the parts, or the segments, we call them, of circles, and then we try and organize them into a rectangle like this. You can see now that our pieces have been cut out, and they've been organized by flipping them one over next to the other ones into very close to a rectangle. If we had have done our pieces or slices or segments smaller, we would actually get this to even more accurate. Now let's have a look at the side. If we actually know to work out the area of a rectangle, it is length times width, or length times breadth. That is for a rectangle. So let's look at this rectangle. What is the value of the width here? You can see that it's one of those pizza pieces, and the width here is actually the radius of the circle. So we can label that as r. That's our width. If we have a look at the top, you can see that the length is corresponding, and maybe I should do this in a different color. Let's do it in blue. The length here corresponds to the outside of the curved pieces of the oranges here. So that is half the way round the circle, or half the perimeter of the circle, which is half of the circumference. So if we look at the circumference of a circle, and we're actually going to use the formula 2 pi r, circumference 2 pi r, that would give us the whole circumference of the circle, but we only want half of that. So 2 pi r, and if we halve that or divide it by 2, gives us that side. We know in this case 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1, so that only leaves us on this side with pi times r. If we then use this formula, length times width, we could then find out the area of the circle. So our length is pi r, and times it by the width of another r. And now you'll notice that this matches our original formula, giving us pi times r, or the area of a circle being pi r squared. Let's now look at applying the formula of the area of a circle. So area, as we know, is equal to pi r squared. So the first one, we are given the radius, so we can straight away use the formula. So area is equal to pi r squared, which is the same as pi times the radius times by the radius again. So pi, we know from before, is approximately 3.14 times by 8 times by 8 again. I know straight away that 8 times 8, or 8 squared, is 64. So it's 3.14 times by 64. Sorry, that should say times by 64. And then we can plug the answer into our calculator, And 3.14 times by 64 is equal to 200.96 centimeters squared, because we're now back to finding the area. So the area inside, it is how many centimeters squared would be inside the circumference. So area measurements, centimeters squared. If we look at the other circle, this time we're given the diameter. So the formula for the area of a circle is pi r squared. If we've got the diameter, so the distance right across the circle, we'll need to halve that to find the radius. So the radius in this case is half of 12.7. So the radius is equal to 6.35 meters. So then we are able to go and plug that into our formula. So the area is equal to pi r squared, which means the same as pi times by the radius again, which is going to give us 3.14 times by 6.35 times by 6.35 again, or you could even just write that as 6.35 squared, but just remember it is 3.14 times by 6.35, timesing that by 6.35 again. So it's pi times by the radius again. Yet again, let's go and plug that into our calculator. 3.14 times 6.35 times 6.35 is equal to 126.61265. We can round this decimal off as probably best. No more than 2 places do we need to show it. So if we're rounding to 2 places, we're rounding to this decimal point. The next number here is a number less than 5, so we're going to round down, so it'll stay the same. So our answer we were looking for would be 126.61 meters squared. Finding the area, so it is meters squared. And that's how you find the area of circles.